So our first topic is we're going to be looking at accounting for management. And accounting for management, we shall start by defining cost like we did before, and said cost is gathering of cost information and its attachment to cost objects. Cost objects, those are items which can be, where a cost can be attached. For example, this is a cost object, because we can attach a cost, the establishment of budget, standard cost, and actual costs of operations. Then management accounting is the application of principles of accounting and financial management to create, protect, preserve, and increase the value of shareholders of for-profit and not-for-profit enterprises. So this is a simple differentiation between accounting, cost accounting, and management accounting. So the main areas under management accounting are 5, okay? So the 5 areas, the first one is costing. This is gathering cost data. Okay? So it's always, like we said, it's always important for you to know which items or which cost objects needs to be added to our list. Then the next one is planning. So planning involves budgeting, okay? How are you planning to spend the money? I believe when you're coming in the morning, you must have had a plan of how much you're planning to spend today. Like maybe I'll spend 10,000 on transport, 10,000 on lunch, 10 on data and other items. So that is what we call planning or budgeting. So when you come back with a budget, you have to control your performance, okay? So that makes our next step as control. Control is assessing the budget versus the actual results, okay? So for example, if you set out that my transport cost will be 10,000, that is basically maybe you're going to use a border, but you find that you are enough, so you end up using a taxi. And you use, instead of the 5,000, you use 3,000. So actually 3,000, but the budget was 5. So that means you have a difference of 2,000, okay? So this difference is what we shall be calling it a variance, but this is a favorable variance, okay? So you keep assessing, how am I performing against my budget? That is control, okay? So even you, I believe all of you have estimated how much time you want to spend at MAT. Who has thought about that? How much time you want to spend doing SSCI? 2 years, okay? So doing from today, 2026 to 2028, along the way, you'll be assessing. My plan is to spend there 2 years. Am I on track to spend 2 years? Okay. And I believe when you're spending 2 years, you need to have parameters for you to spend the 2 years. Maybe I need to do 8 papers per year. Okay. How I do them, that could be according to you. So in doing that, so if you do 4 in a year, that means you have to go back and assess. Am I still on track to achieve the 2 years? Okay. Then after assessing, you have to make a decision. Do I have to do more papers? Oh, now I've figured out the papers are a bit challenging. Maybe I have to do this. Okay. Sometimes you can come here and think of, you do 3 or 2, then you realize they're easy. Then you escalate and do 4. Okay. So in a year, you realize you've done maybe 10 papers. Okay. So that is decision making. Or you can realize that when you're doing the other papers, which are a bit easier, you can do many. so that you can create a big enough time when you're doing the more complicated papers later on. Okay, so you can realize I can do maybe 8 to 10 right now, and maybe do the other 4 5 next year. Okay, maybe next year you realize you have a job, so you make all those decisions based on, or you can be a big planning to spend 2 years, but after 1 year you get a job. This may change your entire plan because of the time consequence. Okay, the time is restricted, so your decisions may have to change. Okay, so that is decision making. So starting with cost, then you plan, you control by assessing budget versus performance, then you make decisions. Then at the end of the period, you have to do performance evaluation. Okay, how did I perform against the set targets? If you set out 2 years and you do the papers in 2 years, then you performed well. If you set out 2 years, maybe, and do the papers in 3 years, maybe you get the feeling of your own performance. So those are the 5 main steps under management accounting. Those 5 main steps constitute our syllabus. Like we said, our syllabus, the first part is just this, almost the first 6 topics, costing. Okay. Then after that, this is budgeting, this and control and what we call standard costing, and that's the performance evaluation. Okay. So our syllabus covers the main pillars of a management accountant. So as a management accountant at work, you be tasked with these regular responsibilities: collect cost data, make a budget. Because before you make a budget, why do we focus on costing first? Before you make a budget, say, I'm going to use the birthday because now people have birthdays. Who has had a birthday recently? A party? You don't celebrate your birthdays? Huh? Hey, not adding there. Okay, that's year. Let's say that's year. So let's plan a birthday this year. So when you have a birthday, what's the first thing you're going to do? Yes? Yes? Get a venue. Okay. How do you know about the venue you want? Research. Pardon? Research. Yeah, research. First thing you do when it comes to a birthday is research. Research about venues. So when you're researching about the venues, what is hindsight? The price. So research about prices. So as you're researching about the venue, I believe you always know the venue you want, but then you're just skimming about prices and saying, if I go to this venue, how much do they sell their food? How much do they sell the venue? How much? So now this is the first thing we said, costs. You first research about the prices, okay? So you find about that, what are the famous venues? Home. When you're home, venue is free. And food is, you won't cook it yourself. It's manageable, okay? Maybe a plate of food will cost you 7,000 when you break down the whole cost. Next venue, who was had a birthday last year? Last year was a nice time to have a birthday. A restaurant. What was price of food? Hey, you didn't have. Hey, Rachel? Angel? I'm not asking the guys because the guy is normal. You had one? Price of food, okay.
Guys.
How much?
8,000.
Like you're taking, okay, 15,000. Let's say that. So after finding out the cost of food, you say if it's at home, food is 7,000. If it is at skies, it's 15,000. Okay. Now that is cost. The first thing we said about management accounting, that is cost. The second thing we said was planning. How do we plan? Yes. Come up with a budget. So after knowing the costs, the prices, you come up with a budget. This budget will be influenced by number of people, okay? So the budget will give you what we call our total cost. And our total cost function, remember we said our total cost is equal to the fixed cost plus the variable cost. So the fixed cost is the venue. In case of home, 0. Then plus the 7,000 times the number of people who are coming, okay? Or if it's at a restaurant, the cost, I think the even restaurant costs are 0. Plus 15,000 times the number of people coming, okay? So now you come up with a budget. So as you, the guy was, when we are looking into the budget, we have what we call the budget factor, the maximum amount you have to spend, okay? Unless you have a bottomless pocket. So if you set up a budget and say, I'm planning for 5 people, and I'm going to spend 25,000 on each, how much is that? 125. Okay. So this is your well-put budget. You're looking into your pockets, you're looking into the pockets of your sponsors, and 125,000 is the money. Okay. The third step was control. So as people are eating, it's always okay. The first of all, you check how many people. As Simon bought the friend. So every time there's a small twitch in the number, in any of these, you know it's going to be a twitching in there. Okay. So you start controlling the budget. So when somebody orders for a drink, you say, I know that one you have an alternative. Okay. Somebody is ordering for juice, no, we budgeted for soda. Okay. So now that is control. What are you trying to make sure? You don't exceed the money you came with. Okay. When somebody is saying, give me, what's the thing where they mix water and juice and cocktail and ice? When somebody is ordering for cocktail, no. Doesn't Pepsi work for you? Okay. That is control. So you're trying to make sure that budget versus actual should be favorable. That at least you should spend less than 1.5, but not more than 1.5. Okay. Now that is control. If you spend more, we normally say adverse. That means you have to look for more money. Okay. So that point, people, but imagine you budget for 5, then 7 people show up. Okay. Then you go into mode 4, decision making. That's the time where you disown some of your friends and say, it's by invitation only. So tell the waitress, you know what? I've seen those guys are coming too, but tell them it's by invitation. Nobody shows you that invitation card comes through. Okay? That is decision making. Or you can say, no. We can get our 5 plates and share them. Okay? That's another way. Or you can say, you ask the waitress, how much is a platter? So instead of having 5 plates, let's have 2 platters. Okay? As long as it's within your budget. So, or you can call the place again and say, the number of people has increased. Is it okay you add us another 50,000? Okay? All that is involved in decision making. Okay? So you decide based on how this one is looking like. Okay? So you called 5 people. However, those 5 people have come with their children. Now you're looking like 15. What can you do? Okay? One time, normally in the church, the priest normally does very good budgeting for the Holy Communion. Thank you. But sometimes it's not enough. So he makes a decision and says, at a point, he says, no, you come and I bless you. Then he touches your head instead of Holy Communion. Or he breaks it down. You see people getting a portion, like a sixth of the whole Holy Communion. Okay? So he keeps breaking it down, looking at the line, he continues to break it down. Okay? That is decision making. One priest can say, I know, all of the rest of you, I will just bless you and you go back. The other one will say, I know, let me continuously break it down. Okay? That is decision making. And then at the end of the party, you do a performance analysis. How did I perform as managing my budget? Okay? You look into some of the hard decisions you had to make, like telling the waitress that insists that if you don't have an invitation, don't come in. Okay? Or decisions of you quick thinking. Let's switch from a plate to platter. You know, when it's a platter, it's okay. No one can miss, even if people don't get satisfied. Okay? So the decisions you're making of making sure that you tell the waitress no one should order for cocktail, because one cocktail will have 3 sodas. Okay? So those are some of you appraise yourself of that kind of performance. So that is what management accounting is. Like I said, it's a very practical exam because these are things we do in our day-to-day lives. Like you realize that I spent more at MAT, I think the taxi should work for me. Or I spent more at MAT and I think I'm a bit fat, I think I should exercise. So your feet bail you out up to down, okay? So those are decisions basing on your actual versus your budget. So we are always in our day-to-day lives making most of these decisions, okay? We are evaluating our performance, we are collecting cost data, because one day you wake up and it has rained and everything is expensive. The Uber is expensive, the border is expensive, the taxi is expensive. Then you assess and say, oh, my feet can work, okay? So you can make such decisions. So when you look at the information you're looking at, information can be of threefold, according to a certain gentleman called Anthony. He said information can be of strategic nature, that is forward-looking and external focus. Forward-looking is where do we want to take this organization in the next 3-4 years, okay? That is information of external nature. Normally, this information should be for more than 2 years or more than a year. You're looking into projections of 3 years. Like, for example, as a country, we have something called Vision 2040. I don't know if it's still there. Okay? So that is information of strategic nature. We have tactical information. This is medium term, linked to budget performance. So how did we perform against the annual budget? So those are tactical information. Then the operations is day-to-day targets, okay? So, for example, you can have information of strategy and say, I want to be here for 2 years. You put in place. So when you say I want to be here for 2 years, that is strategic. Then you have tactical information. You have to set up a plan for an annual plan, okay? And say, I'll do 8 papers. You know, it's not a matter of saying I'll do 8 papers. You have to have the brain capacity as well as the money to do 8 papers, okay? Then on a day-to-day, you say, in this sitting, I'm doing 4 or 3 or 2. And you're attending class on a day. So you're managing your day-to-day activities, but your day-to-day plan. But your day-to-day plan is feeding into your annual plan, and your annual plan is feeding into your strategic plan, okay? The fact you say, I want to first pass MA, and maybe BT, and maybe FA, okay? This is your focus right now. That looks like an operational plan. But when you pass them before June, that means you're feeding into your tactical plan of doing a number of papers. So by June, when you do another 3 or 4 or 2, you feed into your annual plan or your strategic plan of doing the course in 2 years. So information can be of varying nature. Then what's the difference between management accounting and financial accounting? We talked about financial accounts. Normally, financial accounting details the performance of the organization over a defined period, okay? And normally they set an affairs at the end of the period. That's why we say it is historical. You know, a report hazard, okay? I don't think you've ever seen financial saying for the coming year. You know, my report, they say financial statement hazard 31st December 2025. Okay, that means they're reporting about things which happened last year. However, with management accounting, we say the second pillar of management accounting is to plan. Do you plan for the past? We plan for the future. Okay, so unlike financial accounting, management accounts have to be futuristic. The information has to be relevant. Okay, that means whatever you're planning right now is likely to impact your future. Something which has already impacted you cannot be relevant right now. You can't do anything about it. Okay. For example, the amount you spent on ACCA is for this paper. It's no longer relevant information. You already spent that money. Whatever decisions you make right now cannot change the fact that you paid the money. Okay. So the financial accounts you're required by law to prepare financial accounts. Normally, financial accounts, that is P&L, statement of financial position, cash flows, equity. But here we don't have any such legal requirement to prepare management accounts.
How did that come? Is it just for someone at the school, like sending to someone?
The financial accounts. Different organizations under different under the different sections. For example, banking sectors, banking, what you'll be required to publish financials. First of all, if you're listed or if you belong to a particular sector which has public interest. For example, the financial sector, it has public interest because we keep our money with them. So we need to know how they are performing. So they will require you to publish in the national newspaper, not just your Facebook account or your social media account. You publish in the national newspaper, which can easily be accessed by different individuals. On top of that, you publish on your website, but the requirement is to publish in the national newspaper. Actually, most of the publications which are supposed to be made public. For example, if you change your name, if I want to change from, if like a lady gets a man's name and you want to adjust all your academic documents with that man's name, you are required to publish that in the national newspaper or national gazette. So we have a national gazette which is free, but mostly in the newspaper, which can be bought by a cheaper price. The national gazette is free because anyone can ask for it. Okay, but it's supposed to be in the national newspaper. Previously, people would say radio, but it has remained, because it has to remain a document. We need to have a record of it. So if it is on radio or TV, having a record will be difficult. But a newspaper, having a record is easy. So it's supposed to publish financials in the national newspaper. So around April of every year, for example, in Uganda, you should be, May of every year, you should be able to see financial statements of every bank in this country, okay? Because they have that kind of requirement. Then, financial accounting information is of monetary nature. Monetary accounting information incorporates both non-monetary measures, so it can be both qualitative and quantitative. When we're looking at performance measurement, we shall look at non-quantitative because For finance, for accounts, they are numbers strictly. However, for management accounting, when you're looking at, for example, customer satisfaction, numbers don't bring it out. Okay? There are some other attributes which bring out things like customer satisfaction. What are those? What makes you feel, what's an indicator that customers are happy with the business? Pardon? No?
Like common customers.
Common customers coming back? Okay. That's more of innovation. Okay. That's revenue.
Wait, are you meaning an indicator that from the customer side or from the business side?
From both the business side and customer side. Your revenue can indicate, for a new product, for example, let me give you an example. Most of Kampala bars, or not bars, restaurants, they are very profitable in the first two years because of the effect of it being new. People in Kampala love new things. Okay? But what shows that customers are happy is customers keeping coming back. Okay? When you have repeat customers, that means customers are satisfied with your product. Okay? Restaurants have come and and collapsed in Kampala, but there are some restaurants which are exceeding, they've been here for a while, okay, with a high number of customers. That means people are happy with their product. So some of those repeat customers, you cannot easily put money to it. So those are non-monetary measures which we consider in management accounting. For example, innovation. How do you assess innovation? Innovation is important. Number of new products, okay? So every time you have the number of new products increases, that means that company is innovative, okay? So some of those attributes can only be measured by other attributes which are not money related. So those are some of the simple differences between financial and management accounting. Then let's look at data and information. We already talked about this and said data is something which is raw, okay? So when you get something from its original source, for example, if I pass a list of your names, that is data. And when you process that data, like for example, I pass a list of your names and age, I'll end up and say the class has an average age of this, okay? Now that is information. So just your age on the list does not make sense. However, when I get the average of it, then I get my target market, okay? So that is the difference between data and information. So for example, in a business, people need this kind of information about the business, okay? Competitors need to know how the other competitors are performing in terms of revenue, okay? So for example, you want to know their revenue, their profitability, okay? How much they are costed, how much they're selling their products, okay? For customers, are they happy? Are they not happy? Okay. Suppliers, you need to know data about how long they can give you to pay back the suppliers, the government, taxes, okay, and the laws in which you're supposed to operate. So as a business, we need various information from various sources which may impact our business. So quantities of good information should be accurate. So for example, if I tell you we shall have a class on Friday, that's accurate information, but it is also not complete, okay? So good information should be accurate as well as complete. So it should be class on Friday, but at what time? At 2, okay? So accurate information inaccurate information will be misleading, because if you give me false age, that means I'll come up with a false conclusion, okay? Then it should be cost beneficial. The benefit we derive as a business from the information should outweigh the cost of obtaining that particular information. Then it should be user targeted. For example, if I start saying these same things to somebody who finished MA already, that means I'm not communicating. I'm not communicating the right user. So I should be communicating to the right person. Then it should be relevant. The time effect. After you've completed your paper, continue teaching you about MA will not make sense, because for the purpose you needed the information, it has been superseded. Okay? Then it should be authoritative. People should be able to trust the source of the information. Right now with technology, there's a lot of misinformation worldwide, okay? So people should be able to trust the person communicating timely, and it should be easy to use. So whatever information you're passing on, communicate it in the simplest language possible, okay? So that is an aspect of the quality of information we need. To be accurate, complete, cost beneficial, user targeted, relevant, authoritative, timely, and easy to use. And some of the challenges we have with decision making, remember we said we need to use relevant information, okay? So when you're making a decision, but what's the challenge of using relevant information? One of the aspects of relevant information should be futuristic, okay? So what is the challenge of using futuristic information? Yeah, it will be a wrong prediction. Anyone of you ever tried predicting a game? Like Arsenal fans, they had their statistics. They're saying we have the first shots on target in 4 matches. We have the best defense. You see, all the statistics are showing you you're going to batter United, okay? But then you don't realize United just hired Carrick, and everything changes. So even in business, you predict maybe next year the weather will be good. Maybe I'll have these crops, but what are the chances that the weather will be good? Okay? In this futuristic information, it's not certain. That's the challenge. Okay? It is probable. There are chances of it occurring and chances of it not occurring. Okay? So in a battle to try to be relevant, sometimes we may be too optimistic or too pessimistic, okay? You may project and say in first year business will grow by 20, then next year 50, next year 70. Normally that is the projection, okay? But you don't know what you're going to face in the future. When you're planning and say, like you said, I want to be here for 2 years, you can't say that with certainty. Why? First of all, one, the thing may turn out to be hard, or if they turn out to be easy, you get a job, or a lockdown comes by. Worst case scenario. Okay? These are all probable things which can happen and affect the decision you're making right now. Okay? That is the only limitation we are having as management accountants. When you make your budget, like I said, the birthday budget, you're budgeting for 5 people. What if they show up 8? Okay? So it becomes a bit difficult. When people get excited and start ordering for cocktails instead of soda, by the time you realize you have 5 cocktails on your table, everything has changed. Okay? So now it becomes limitations of information for decision making, because the information we are using is not certain, it's futuristic, it's predictive. Okay? But if we knew with certainty that this is going to happen, then it would be easier. But now we don't know with certainty that something is going to happen. So that is a challenge of the information we use in management accounting. Any questions? Okay. So in absence of questions, that concludes our class today. Given it's our first class, we can stop there. And then what is our next class according to timetable? On Friday at 2. So we meet on Friday at 2. Do you have access to books right now? When are they giving you access? Pardon?
You said this book to us.
No, this is an older version. There's a newer version which should be given to you. Okay, let me talk to them, then we see if we can have it by Friday. Okay. All right. Thank you for the morning, and thank you for choosing to start the MA with MAT Abacus. Have a nice, it's not a weekend. Have a good Monday afternoon.